Connor O'Neill joining us now on the XFL Markcast. Is the XFL Markcast still, or are we doing CFL Markcast? What are we doing here?
We're figuring it out.
Figuring it out as we go. Welcome, Connor, to the show. Wanted to get your perspective as a podcaster, someone who follows the CFL, and see what you think about all this chatter that's going on right now.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much for having me on. Understand you just had Jim Mullen on as well. So great guy to have on, President of Football Canada. So I'm excited, though. Thank you guys for having me on. It's going to be fun to talk about some CFL-XFL stuff.
Yeah, we had Braden with CFL Reddit on last week, and he said, Connor's your guy. You got to talk to Connor. And so, Braden is the official stand of Paul Sanchez now on Twitter. So whatever Braden says, we got to go for it. So, what's it been like for you just the last couple of weeks? I mean, we've had a lot of people ask us the other way, right? What's it been like being an XFL podcast, talking CFL? What's it been like for you the last couple of weeks?
Hectic. I won't lie. As soon as the news dropped, man, I was like, okay, what's going on? What do we need to, because, like podcasting and stuff, when news drops, you got to get on that quick, right? So for me, it was like, all right, how am I going to talk about this? What do I know? What do I want to stay away from? Like kind of the stuff that I don't really know yet. And then I'm a big CFL draft guy. I'm a U Sports guy, which is our equivalent to the NCAA up here. So my next thought was, okay, shoot, how does this then affect U Sports and then affect the draft? So that was another thing I had to quickly think about, but man, it's been hectic since that news broke.
And Jim touched on that too. He was talking about how it's kind of like a soccer academy system in a way where you kind of, work your way through it and then, either get a job or, go to the CFL. So it's very crucial that the CFL keeps those bonds going with the college game up there and the youth football game.
Yeah, no, totally. I, personal experience. I grew up playing football in Canada. I played it here in my home in Kingston, Ontario, and then, went through that recruiting process, ended up behind me here at the University of Ottawa. Wasn't quite good enough to go to the CFL. There's some pretty talented guys in front of me, but it's totally kind of work your way up type, like you said, like a soccer academy almost. Like you're right in it from the time you're little, and you either go to the league or you don't.
Yeah, I want to talk to you. When we were scheduling you for this and you were asking, what are we going to talk about? And I kind of sent you over the rundown, and the first thing was, draft taking place May 4th. And you're like, that's funny. So, I mean, we talked with Jim about this. What are we thinking timeline wise? What are you feeling? Are we going in May 4th? And then are we continuing on? I mean, what's going on?
So as far as I know, like everything I've heard, the CFL draft is going to happen on May 4th. They did it virtually last year. They're going to do it virtually again this year, as far as I know. They're in the process of doing combines right now. Like it's combine season for the NFL right now too. I know around this time here up in Canada, it's combine season for us too. So normally there'd be guys in the gyms. We have regional combines the way it works up here. So the Atlantic Canada guys and the Quebec guys, and kind of Ontario is a big province, so kind of some of the Eastern Ontario guys, they have their East Regional Combine. There's like a Western Regional Combine, so that's the Can West schools. So you get your Calgarys, your Saskatchewans, those types of school. And then there's an Ontario Regional Combine, which is the rest of Ontario, so Toronto area. And there's a national combine as well. So guys will get invited to the national combine right away. And those are kind of your top tier guys. And then the guys that they kind of want a look at before they get invited to a national combine, they get to go show it at a regional combine, and then they get the invite to the national combine. So a little bit different than that NFL combine process, but it's combine time out here, and guys are doing them virtually. So they have until April 11th to get all their footage in and submit that to the league. So, it's broad jumps, it's 40s, it's bench press, it's 5-10-5s, 3-cone shuttles, things of that nature up here.
Yeah, we've watching football here every day this week. It's all these pro days and stuff, and everyone's scouting out, trying to figure that out. I mean, do you feel optimistic about a June launch here, or are we thinking? How do you feel? Are we going to get pushed back? Is it going to be a delayed season or a shortened season? I've seen polls recently, like how many games will the CFL actually play this year?
It's so hard. I just want football so bad because I won't lie. I'm an NFL fan. I'm not going to say I don't really want to say out loud that I'm a Detroit Lions fan, but I am. It's tough, but yeah, no, I mean, so we've been out without Canadian football up here for the better half of a year or more now. We haven't had Canadian college football. We haven't had Canadian Football League football. I really want to be optimistic, and we're hearing things come out of Winnipeg. Like they've got a plan in place to actually have people in the stadium and have like a pod system where you stay in your pod and you go get your vendor based on your pod. But Ontario is a different story. We got cases rising. There's a projection out that if we don't crack down and we don't stay safe, that the daily average in Ontario is going to reach somewhere around 6,000 cases a day, which is pretty high for Ontario. I mean, Canada is a smaller country, but that's high. And the league is so dependent on having fans in the seats. If it's a 6,000 person a day case rate, how can you safely have fans in the seats is my question. And I really want to be optimistic, but I think the league does too. And I think everything is in place to try to make it happen in June. So if we can safely make it happen, let's make it happen is where I'm at with it.
Switching gears, when all this chatter started happening about the XFL coming in and talks of a merger, what was your initial reaction? And then did you have time to process and maybe change, or are you still in that initial reaction phase?
So my initial reaction when this all hit, I'm of the younger generation of CFL fans, right? I'm not quite immersed in the the long history of the CFL, though I do love it. I love the history aspect of the CFL, but I watched XFL football all spring when it was on. I personally loved the way the game ran, loved the way the game was played. I'm younger, I'm 25. I didn't see the first round of XFL football, but obviously when I saw that it was coming back, I did my research. I went back, I watched some YouTube highlights, and I thought the XFL, the way they ran it was awesome. It was fun football to watch. The way the game was played was fun. Being kind of, or I should say, knowing what I know and knowing what the way the league is going, money was an issue. Money has been an issue. The league's bleeding money right now. That's not a secret. I mean, there's a 20% pay cut off the top that they're asking players to take. That's indicative of where the league's at financially. Don't get me wrong. I personally love CFL football. I love 3-down football. I love, everything that there is to love about Canadian football is that all the fans and of the league are kind of wary of with this merger. But I think the merger can be good, not just for the CFL, but for both leagues. And I think this can just create a really fun football league that can be enjoyed by North Americans. And it can kind of reinforce that, big brother, little brother type rivalry that we have with you guys too. I think there's a lot of concerns from like the historians of the CFL, and I see where they're coming from. We tried this in 93 to 95 with the CFL expansion, but that was different. That was a straight expansion. That wasn't a merger. This is more going to be a merger. So if there's a way to do it, I think we can do it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. End of the day, if it's this is kind of the general take on it right now. Like, I love Canadian football and I love the history of Canadian football and the fact that it is truly a Canadian football league. But if I have the choice between watching the CFL teams play the XFL teams or not watching CFL teams at all, I'm going to choose to watch that football because I love football.
Well, that's what we've gotten at. And I talked to Jim a little bit about this too. We're the XFL Markcast, but we're not like, XFL rules are better or whatever. I mean, we cover, the spring league. We have all football down here. We just covered the Twitch Fan Control Football League. People are like voting on their phones, so because people ask me all the time online now, like, well, would you really watch 3-down football? And I'm like, yeah, like we covered 5-down football on Twitch. Like it's not, but then what it's gone to now is people go, well, I'm not like you. I just want CFL. Right. And at that point, you can't have a discussion anymore. Right. And we are different and that's okay. Right. But there are like you and I think a lot of people, the fans that just want more football. And then there are like, well, I'm going to ride this plane to the ground if it's not the CFL. And it's really hard. I don't know how you reach those people.
It's tough. It's so hard to. I really don't know how you do that either. 3-down football to me is not worth losing the league over. Yes, it's interesting. Yes, it's fun. But I mean, there's still things that you can keep that are, like uniquely Canadian to appease those fans that want the Canadian angle. How fun would it to be, like, whether it's 3 down, 4 down football, whether it's 11 or 12 guys on the field, how fun would it to be to keep the motion of the Canadian game and bring it into the XFL? Because that's something, playing in that my whole life, like as a DB too, like I couldn't imagine trying to, like, receivers with a run up is one of the hardest things I've ever had to try to cover in my life. Like, watching that at a professional level is incredible as well. And, I think with the direction that the XFL is trying to take, kind of that entertainment direction, because it's fun football to watch, don't get me wrong, that would only make it more entertaining. You get receivers with a run up now, come on.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think the motion, if anything, I don't care about downs. I think motion is a great thing to bring in, and just to help infuse those two things together for sure.
We like the idea of like the high octane offense. I've been watching a lot of CFL recently, clearly, and watching it and watching the multiple motion. It's just like, yeah, it's different, but it's not a bad different. Like, it's actually more entertaining different than what the NFL does. That might be blasphemous as an American, but in my opinion, I like watching that going, wow, there's a lot of options here to keep that score going up.
There is. Yeah, no, the motion is so much fun. I mean, the stagnant motion really limits what you can do in the NFL. You get one guy, you get one motion. That's kind of it, right? I mean, you see the tight ends kind of motion back and forth, but you got, I guess you have to keep 2 wide receivers on the line in Canadian football, but you have 3 to 4 other wide receivers running around in the backfield. It's crazy. And you can do it. Like, you can play 4 down football with the motion. When I played summer ball in Canada, it's 4 down football in the summer, in Ontario at least. It's 4 down football in the summer, still with the Canadian dimensions. But then when I went back and played high school in the fall, it was, and obviously on a university, it was 3 down in university. But a lot of the grassroots programs, they are playing 4 down football with all the Canadian motion and rules right now. So it's not undoable, and it's not something that I think Canadian football fans should be trying to let the league die over either.
Yeah, my big thing on here recently is, we're about solutions, and there's a lot of nitpicking on both sides, XFL to CFL and then CFL back. And like, I'm just not a fan of, cutting things down when I do think both leagues need help, and someone asked me last night, I said, the XFL needs the legitimacy and the legacy of the CFL, and the CFL needs the money and the marketing of the XFL, right? And it doesn't mean that, it's just one of those things where both, 1 + 1 is going to equal 5 or whatever, right? Where you're just going to get so much more out of it. And so I just hate this like negativity back and forth. And it really does seem like it's, what almost seemed like jovial the first couple weeks or whatever is spiraling a little bit more into vitriol now, and I don't like that. It doesn't feel good to me to have that discussion going that way.
No, certainly not. I mean, I don't really like that either. And you touched on a good point. I mean, the XFL needs the legitimacy, the CFL needs the money. Yeah, I know you guys already talked about this, and I thought it was a great point, but everything The Rock touches turns to gold. And if that's going to save both leagues and we're going to have one great league of football, let's do it. I'm all about it. Let's get solutions on the table and make something happen. I just want to see spring football, and I want to see that continue on in some capacity with the CFL football, whether it's, an amalgamation of the 2 leagues or the CFL is in play or whatever. Just let me watch the football in the summer. And if it is the 2 leagues too, I mean, in terms of pure marketing with what The Rock can do, could you imagine? Like, I know Seattle fans, you got the flag behind you, but Seattle fans show out, and they showed up to those Dragons games. And fans in BC, man, they show up at BC plays the Lions games. So that cross-border rivalry could be something else too, and it could be something marketed so well, I think.
Completely agree. Like they do in soccer with Vancouver and the Sounders, and that rivalry is Portland tight in there, of course. That's also a key rivalry as well across the border. Jim talked about getting young people to actually watch and go to sporting events. As a young person yourself, how does that happen? How do you grow the game and get the demographic and get people watching again?
So that might be a little bit of the oddity, right? Like it's just something that, from the time I could watch football and understand what it was, or pick up a football and throw it. Like, I've always been enthralled with the sport. It's something that I've just loved. But man, what one thing that I heard this week that I thought was so interesting, and I was like, hey, that's the way to do. If you're gonna get people my age and younger, or around my age and younger, to kind of get in the stadium and watch these games. So Saskatchewan had a bid to host the Grey Cup for 2020, and they lost. But part of that bid and part of that project was that they were going to host an esports tournament along with the Grey Cup festivities, with a $50,000 prize pool. Esports, what a lot of the kind of, I'll say the older generation of CFL fans don't know, is how big a boom esports is experiencing right now. Esports as a whole, it was going to be a League of Legends tournament, I believe, which is like one of the biggest esports games online right now that's not named Fortnite and Rocket League. So like games like that, and having events like that, whether it's, whether they're playing Madden and you can like skin it so it's CFL or something like that, whether it's like that or not, esports being worked into these types of events are huge, because you could run it. You could have take whoever was in the Grey Cup that year, call it Hamilton and Winnipeg again, take 4 players off Hamilton, 4 players off Winnipeg, have them run a League of Legends game, stream it on Twitch. Oh, now you got whether it's 100 new fans or 1,000 new fans, you got 1,000 or 100 new kids and Twitch fans watching these players play a game that they love. Now they might be more invited to watch CFL football. So I think doing things like that, maybe not so much, marketing the league itself, but having these kind of side events where you can use that to market the league to a younger audience is the way to do it. And I think the esports thing is so smart. And I know in Toronto, they have a $500 million project in place for an esports building itself. So if I'm the Argos, if I'm Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment Group, you got to be looking at getting into that as well. I think esports is the way to these younger kids now, because it's so popular and so huge.
Yeah, we when Braden was on last week, he said how basically the CFL Reddit community had to bully the CFL to even get a TikTok account, right? And this is, that's where I look at The Rock and things, and people, I was on Rob Peterson's show yesterday, and I had all these people blasting me like, well, what has The Rock ever done? I'm like, The Rock has 230 million followers. Like, I don't really want to debate the legitimacy of someone's, whatever. But, I do think, that would help, bring that in and attract those younger people. My last question for you today is, there's been a lot of talk. CFL goes on this year. If they come out and they say, we are merging next year, or we're going to do this modification or whatever, covering a lame duck CFL season, for lack of a better term, is that something that you guys have thought about or considered kind of going into this year where we don't know what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, my approach to covering it this year is just, I'm going to keep doing it. I love it. I love the league. If I can cover football this year, I'm going to do it. I might be one of the rare few, but I'm so excited for the draft season coming up May 4th. I know a lot of guys going into it. Maybe that's why I'm excited for it. But yeah, no, I think the merger is looking like it's going to happen. The needle's looking like it's going to sway that way. So, I mean, if this season does go on, and I think it came out today that the XFL needs a CFL season to happen to make this merger kind of come to fruition, which obviously that seemed pretty obvious to me. I don't know about you guys, but and so if we are going the way of the merger, and if the CFL season does happen this year, yeah, hell yeah, let's go give it one last ride, cover one last CFL season, and make some memories out of it. I mean, I'm going to cover it because I love it.
Perfect. Connor O'Neill, thank you for your time. We appreciate your insight as a blogger, someone who's covering the CFL, as a young person as well.
We appreciate you guys for having me on. It was a lot of fun. It's always it's cool to get the chance to talk to guys across the border with a little bit different perspective. So appreciate you guys giving me the chance.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate connecting and coming on.
Stay safe, man.
Have a good one.
Thanks.